Now, with that, I'm going to move on to a little bit of a more conceptual topic, right? And it's about this 2% rule that I put forward in the website. So I just want to take a moment to like verbally say what I mean by this, right? It's documented, and I made a couple of videos about this, but what this means really is it's a technique of control of human systems. And I've noticed this pattern because I've observed many of the attacks that they orchestrate against many things, not only me or my companies, but even institutions or countries, right? And how they function, how they structure these attacks. The commonality is always that they compromise about 2% of the system. So, for example, imagine, let me pose a hypothetical game, okay? And sorry, I should have scripted at this, but I didn't, and it's too late. And then I'm just gonna try to do this on the fly. So it will be a bit bump, but please bear with me for a second. I'm gonna propose a hypothetical game, okay? So you, the viewer, and me, we are adversaries in this game. So the objective is to win, okay? And what win means is pending definition. It depends on the scenario. So the game is about human systems, and the rules are, given a human system that is proposed and a scenario that is proposed, each player gets to pick 2% of the people in that human system. And by picking, what I mean is that if you pick a person in this human system, you completely control that person. You can tell the person what to say, what to do, where to go, how to act, what not to, anything. And the goal of the game is to achieve the goal of the scenario. And I'm going to give an example of what that looks like. Imagine that the scenario is a school, okay? And you and I are students and adversaries. And the school is full of people. It has other students, it has teachers, it has the principal, the sub-principal, the counselors, it has medical staff, maybe nurses, I don't know. It has 500 people, okay? So in this first version of the game, because I'm going to change the game a little bit later, I'm going to give it a twist, okay? But in this first iteration of the game, let's think that each player can pick one person at a time. So if it's my turn to play, I can pick one person in this human system, in this school, in this example, and I can control that person, okay? And the objective is to be the first to achieve the goal of the scenario. For example, the goal of the scenario in this example could be to get the best grades in the school. So imagine you and I are two students, and we have a magical ability to control people at will within this school. And our goal is to have the best grades. So only one of us can win, okay? The question is, how do you play this game? Like it's a strategy game, it's a chess game, right? Okay, so the question is, who plays first? Because of course, the one who plays first will want to take the principal, right? Obviously, because it's the person with more power and decision-making power in that system. So it's important who plays first, is what I'm saying, right? Okay, but imagine that we just start with this dynamic, right? So you do the exercise, right? I'm gonna pick somebody, and then you pick somebody else. Okay, I pick the principal, and you will probably pick the sub-principal, right? Then I pick the physical education teacher, and then you would pick the math teacher, right? And then I pick the counselor, one counselor, like the best looking female counselor in this school. You see where this is going, right? Depending on the people you pick, you may be able to construct situations that may allow you to win by either getting advantages or hindering the adversary. For example, let me tell you why I picked the sports education teacher. Because if I see that you're getting better grades than me, I might use that teacher to construct some sort of sexual harassment claim against you during the PE class, or with the, and then these are the rules that they do all the time to everybody, right? This is how they control the world, but this is on the ground, hyperlocally, how it functions. Or with the counselor, right? I might get you into counseling somehow and get you to admit things that I might use to blackmail you later. Or I'll refer you to a psychiatrist and medicate you. And that way I eliminate you as a competitor, right? Which would allow me to win and get the best grades because you cannot play anymore, right? You are banned from making your own decisions or too heavily medicated or impaired while taking the exams. So that's how it works. But the game, that's not the game, right? This is just the example. Now I'm going to change the game a little bit. Now in this version 2 of the game, I'm going to change the order in which we pick the people. And I'm going to say that each player picks the people at once. So if I get to play first, I'm going to pick all the people that I'm allowed to pick. And there's a number of people that you can pick because it's a resource that is constrained. So you see, if I play first, I would pick the principal, the sub-principal, the PE teacher, all the counselors, all the medical staff, the cook in the kitchen of the school. I would pick the bus driver. I would pick all these people that you need to interact with every day. And eventually I could use them against you. But then my turn at picking people will be exhausted. And now it will be your turn to play. And you will pick people to try to counter what I did. It's the logical, right? It's the logical step. And now that you saw what I picked, you can foresee what I'm going to do with that. And then you have to take steps that could protect you from that, right? Which is basically what I've been doing the last 5 years. Now, let's change the game a little bit again. Now let's make it more interesting. Now, in this third version of the game, I'm the only player who knows the rules. You don't know the rules. You don't know that you can pick people. I'm the only one allowed to pick people. And you don't know that I control these people. Imagine how rigged this game is, right? Like, how do you even have any chances against me? It's impossible. You don't have any chances. You don't even know what's happening. You don't even know you're playing a game. That's the problem. So I call this the 2% rule, that by controlling only 2% of the system, and that's the number of people that you could pick in this game, right? Because I've seen that's the number they use. By controlling 2% of the people that are in this human system, you can control anything that happens in that system. You can kill people in that system if you want, just by controlling 2%. It doesn't have to be the president of the country either. Like, you can control people below the president and still control the president. So this, and they apply this not only in human systems, they apply this, and this in reality is a computer science principle in distributed computing. And that's how I saw it. That's why I saw it, because I've been doing this to computer science problems the last 12 years. It's a well-known principle. In computer science, I just didn't know that they had applied it to human systems and weaponized. That was the aha moment when I saw that. And that's how they attack Google search as well. All these attacks they do with the attacks to the queries, to splitting the tail and the head between Amazon and eBay, is based on this principle. They issue 2% of the clicks for those queries. And with 2% of the clicks placed strategically in their pages, they dominate the results for any query. And this is done via the technologies, Alchemy News Star and Wikipedia, and that's what the cold vaccine counters. Because what the cold vaccine did to counter that was to reverse that process so their clicks wouldn't do anything. And that's why they had to steal it. Anyhow, so yeah, that's the 2% rule, okay? Then after thinking about that for a while, I came to the realization that this also has a quadratic effect, a compounding effect, okay? And by a quadratic effect, which is what I call the Aguiar's theorem, I named it that way on the website, because Stephen Fortune has his own theorem. And so I thought maybe I'll have one. So assume for a second that what I'm saying holds water. I know you may think, it's not really true or whatever, right? But imagine for a second that it works that way and that it works. That with 2% of the people, you can control any human system. So the next provoking thought there is that you can build on that idea and take it to non-human systems easily, because all systems in society that we know are at the end composed or maintained by humans, right? Let me give you an example. Imagine that you start this process, that you're doing this in the real world, and you start by taking the schools in a small town. And then, but to take the schools, you don't need to take the entire school. You only need to take 2% of the people in that school, the director, the PE teacher, the counselors, or the nurse, the cook in the kitchen, so you can hurt the kids and harm them with food, contaminated food if you need to, with the medical staff, so you can tamper with the adversary's medication. things like that. At the end, you control the school, but you only have to invest in controlling 2% of the people in that school. Okay. But if you can do this on all the on 2% of the schools, you don't have to do this on all the schools. But if you do in 2% of the schools, you now really control the school system. Which ones? Well, the most important, the 2% most important schools. And what that most important means in the context of schools is up to debate. But if I was playing this game in the real life, I would pick the schools where the sons and the daughters of the political player in my state go to school, right? Because that would give me access to the people that are guiding politically the country or the state. The same with the clinics. You don't need to take all the clinics. You only need to take the clinics where your adversary goes. Kelsey is able in my case. And you can take those with 2% of the personnel of those clinics. So you see, you can control 2% of all the systems with only 2% of the people in each system. So it's a quadratic compounding effect. What this is telling you, if you do the math, multiplied by 2%, it's 0.02 multiplied by 0.02. You multiply the two numbers, it's 0.0004, which means really 0.04% of that. What this is really telling you is that you can control the entire country with 0.04% of its population. I did the math. And you can take it to another level. You can control the world with about 2% of the countries. It holds. If you want to control the world, what you have to control? You have to control US, China, Russia, right? Like, you need to control the 2%. You don't need to control all the countries. You would effectively control the world because these countries control a disproportionate amount of the economy, of the military power, of the technology. So you see how a very simple principle with this quadratic effect has a disproportionate effect, right, in the outcome of control and influence. I don't know. It's a fascinating topic. But anyhow, just a little bit of food for thought. But the reason I was thinking about all this is because, in the third version of the game that we were playing, you didn't know you were playing. I was playing, but you didn't know that you were playing. Now, all this I'm mentioning is because of the observation yesterday about Starlink and the satellites, and that maybe there might even be collusion in how the satellites are built to maximize this network connectivity, right? This secret network to commit crimes. So I was thinking about that, and one thought led to the other. And I had a profound realization when I think I saw what's happening. And I don't know, but I think that what is happening really, and I'm saying this because I think, and I'm not a lawyer. I have no knowledge. I was born and raised in a third world country. I have no really education to even talk about this. But it occurred to me that assume for a second that this is what they're doing. Let's start with that premise that yes, they're colonizing the world by using this 2% principle with the quadratic effect and controlling a strategic pieces of infrastructure and systems by controlling 2% of people in each individual system. Okay. And that they're assume for a second that the observation about bouncing signals of the satellites from yesterday's video also is true. Okay. So it seems to me that what is happening, and this means that the Chinese government basically installed, I want to say owns, but installed, because I think this was designed by design, installed SpaceX in the US, okay, as a mean to have a company with the capability of launching satellites being an American company, okay? So this led me to think about a fundamental question of corporate ownership, really. And more than corporate ownership, about the origin of a product. And I don't know how to frame it, but I guess the question fundamentally is, and this question is or might be relevant because it frames how this problem could play out within legal frameworks international. So this is it's like the question, and this is why I'm bringing this up in this session, because it feels to me very much like the question, the fundamental question I brought up to that mediator today, right? Am I crazy or am I not, right? Pick one, please. Are Starlink satellites American-made, or are they Chinese-made or Iranian-made? Pick one. Like, we have to determine what is the real country of origin of these satellites. That's the key, right? Because I was asking yesterday, can we shoot down? Oh, I have no power to shoot down anything. Could the American government, right, eventually, right, if this theory or idea is proven to be the case, could they make the decision to shoot down the satellites? Shoot them down, right? That would be the solution to disassemble the network, because no satellites, they can't talk to each other. They would become silos. If they're silos, it's game over, right? But to shoot them down, legally speaking, because I believe this country upholds the law, they wouldn't go rogue and kill the 7,000 satellites just because they can. There will have to be a discussion and a legal process, and somehow that determination must be made or could be made, right? But then the question that is going to come is, okay, so are these American-made satellites? Because it's very different shooting down something that was made by your own citizens as shooting down something that was made by a foreign power, even if posing as your own citizens. It's a fundamental question, and it changes dramatically what's the framework in all this. And that thought about country of origin of a product and corporate ownership also led me to see that what they seem to be doing really is colonizing the countries from the ground and from the skies at the same time, right? From the ground by acquiring property, and in parallel also digging tunnels using the boring company at unprecedented rates that no other private entity, well, this is not a private entity, but it's a country, a coalition of countries. But so they acquire property at a rate that it's unthinkable, right? And at the same time, they launch low orbit satellites at a rate that is also unthinkable, right? So now they have physical control both of the land above ground and even underground and of the space. And all this is only possible because they have this huge revenue stream, illegal, from the drug trade and other illicit trades from Diosdado, K-Below, plus the tech monopoly. So you see, this is the reason why I'm so interested in Diosdado, K-Below, eBay, and Amazon. It's not because of personal vendetta, it's because I understand the 2% principle as well. I understand it now. And I know that the pressure point is Diosdado Cabello. Like, removing Diosdado, K-Below, and Cartel de los Soles from the equation removes the income stream. And that makes it impossible for them to keep launching satellites and buying houses. That's the reason why. So it's one of those examples where understanding a concept to its core allows you to see the solution to the problem, right? The solution might not even be shooting down the satellite. The solution might be creating a situation in which Diosdado, K-Below, and eBay cannot keep this organization in this way. So they cannot keep launching satellites, and building rockets, and launching things into space above the US and other countries. And they cannot keep acquiring land to install antennas. It's the land and the sky what they're taking, right? And with the two together, they create these links that are impossible to track, and that gives them impunity, right? Because they have this secret internet that nobody can tap into, and it's hard to gather evidence against them for any of their crimes, right? Anyhow, I know it's a lot to digest, but I thought I should share, right, these thoughts in case there's will out there to investigate these things, because the situation is urgent, really. If this thing keeps progressing, it could get to a point where there will be what they call in science the no return point, right? Like where there's no way back. So I really urge authorities to do something.